My name is Poonam Kapadia, and I'm Executive Director of Education Strategy at Projects and Knowledge powered by Kaplan. I'm honored today to be part of Kaplan's series for Women's History Month, and I am joined today by my dear friend and colleague, Ruth Adewuya, who is the Managing Director of Medical Education at Stanford University. So today we are going to be having a conversation talking about Women's History Month, but also talking about how women leaders in healthcare can prioritize self-care. So to just get us started, Ruth, I would love if you could share a little bit about your role and what you do as managing director.
Thank you so much, Poonam, for inviting me to this conversation. I'm Ruth Adewuya, and as the managing director of the Stanford Center for Continuing Medical Education, I lead efforts to design innovative, evidence based educational experiences that integrate technology, leadership development, and interprofessional learning. So, my work focuses on ensuring that healthcare professionals not only stay up to date with the latest medical advancements, but also develop the leadership and strategic skills necessary to navigate an ever evolving healthcare landscape.
That is a lot of responsibility, and I'm sure your plate is very full. So grateful that you could join us today for this conversation, and I'm looking forward to hearing how you prioritize self-care amongst the busy days that you have. I'd love for us to start with exploring a little bit about Women's History Month and what that personally means to you. It's a time to celebrate the achievements of women in the month of March, and would love to hear how this month what it means to you personally, particularly in the context of your career.
For me, Women's History Month is both a celebration and a call to action. It's a time to honor those who paved the way in medicine, education, and leadership, many of whom fought to have a seat at the table so that I and others could have a voice today. But it's also a reminder of the responsibility we have to continue this progress. Representation in healthcare matters, not just in who delivers care, but in who designs the educational frameworks, leads institutions, and makes policy decisions. So, this month is an opportunity to reflect on how we, as women in healthcare, can amplify each other's voices, advocate for systemic change, and create pathways for the next generation of leaders. It also fuels my commitment to mentorship and building spaces where women step into leadership with confidence and support.
I love those reflections. I can really relate to the generational piece that you brought up as well. The idea of paying it forward and mentorship is so important to empower other women in healthcare. But also, I think that the generational differences allows us to have some really interesting and impactful conversations. And it's a really great month to be having those conversations. So, transitioning to self care, I would love to know what self care means to you personally. Do you believe that it's important, especially for women in healthcare leadership?
Yeah, in some ways, self care has become such a buzzword. But for me, it's really about sustainability. How do I sustain my energy, creativity, and passion for the work that I do? I believe it's also a leadership skill, the ability to recognize when I'm running on empty and proactively refuel rather than waiting for burnout to force a stop. As women in healthcare, we're often expected to be both highly competent and endlessly available. But the burnout rates are disproportionately high among women leaders. So, in a field where the demands are relentless, normalizing self care is a radical act and is one that I believe is necessary for sustainable leadership. For me, self care means setting boundaries, prioritizing rest, and giving myself permission to pause, not just for my own well being, but because leaders cannot support, innovate, or advocate effectively if they are constantly depleted.
Can you share a little more in terms of your specific self care practices and routines that you implement on a daily basis?
Self care isn't just about what I do alone, it's really about who I surround myself with. Having a strong, supportive community is invaluable. On a more physical level, movement is key, whether it's taking a walk, doing Pilates, or simply stepping away from my desk to reset. It's amazing how even a 10-minute walk outside can completely shift my mindset and help me tackle challenges with fresh energy. Another practice I'm working on, though not perfectly, is intentional disconnection. Learning to set boundaries between work and personal time is something that I'm continuing to refine because it's so easy to let work spill over into everything. But I realized that taking time to truly unplug isn't just good for me, it makes me a better leader, colleague, and a person. But given these are my self care practices, Poonam, I'm curious about your self practices. What do you do?
I love that you mentioned intentional disconnection. So I'm thinking of what I do in order to achieve that. I started trying to do self-care Sundays for myself, which is really just Sunday evenings, like after 6 p.m. I try not to have any social engagements. I try not to have anything on the calendar, but it's my time to rest, to reflect before the stress of the week starts. And that can look different and it doesn't have to be very complicated. But having it as part of my start of the week routine really helps me go into the week with um, just feeling really ready for whatever is going to come my way.
That's another great example of what self care could look like for someone. And I'll just add that self care doesn't have to look the same for everyone. It's really identifying the practice that works for you.
Totally agree. So I want to dive into that a little deeper because I think that what's hard about self-care is sometimes you feel motivated and you're like, okay, I did it this week or I did it today, I did it the next day, but it can be hard to make it a regular practice. And then you get to a point where it's been 3 months and that self-care routine that you started for yourself just kind of fell off the map. So what advice would you have for women in healthcare or those aspiring to leadership roles about how to integrate self-care and keep it consistent in their busy schedules?
My biggest piece of advice would be to stop waiting for permission to take care of yourself. No one else is going to carve out that time for you. So you have to prioritize yourself with intention. And self care isn't about big, grand gestures, as Poonam and I have given examples. It's about small, sustainable habits that protect your energy over time. So find micro moments to recharge, whether that's blocking 30 minutes for uninterrupted thinking time, learning to say no, or simply giving yourself the grace to pause. And I'll just add that most importantly, self care shouldn't feel like another obligation. It's not a task, it's a mindset. And so when woven into how you work, lead, and live, it becomes part of your foundation and not just a fallback when burnout is looming.
I love that. Thank you so much, Ruth. Thank you for joining us for this conversation. And I hope what we shared today is helpful for those tuning in.
Thank you so much, Poonam. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you.